In today's episode, Dr. Shadi Ireifej, the CEO of Vet Triage, joins us to discuss the company that gives you instant video televet sessions for any species with a licensed, experienced veterinarian. You can connect 24 hours a day, 365 days a year from anywhere on your computer or your mobile device. So if you want to hear about the future of veterinary telemedicine, this is the episode for you. This episode was also brought to you by Shameless Pets, an all-natural, nutritionist-crafted, sustainable dog treat brand using surplus ingredients such as sweet potatoes that are too big or too small to have made it to the grocery stores. They're made in the USA, and their mission is to save as much food as possible by incorporating healthy foods into innovative and fun treats. You can use Mella 25 at checkout for a 25% discount. So with that, let's get right into today's episode. Hi everyone, I'm Daniela from Mella Pet Care, and today I'm joined by a special guest, Dr. Shadi Ireifej. He is the CEO of Vet Triage. Well, Dr. Shadi, thanks so much for joining me today.
Thank you for having me. This is a lot of fun.
Yes, of course. And so to start off, would you maybe like to introduce yourself and give a little bit of personal background for the listeners?
Sure. So I'm a board certified veterinary surgeon. I've been a veterinarian for over 15 years. I went to vet school at Cornell and did a 1-year internship in Boston, followed by a 2-year surgical internship in Long Island at Long Island Veterinary Specialist. And that led me into a surgical residency where I became board certified. From there, I worked at a hospital in Las Vegas, Specialty Hospital. Then I went to Silicon Valley and was chief of surgery there at a facility. Moved from there and became part owner of a hospital in Los Angeles. After that, I launched Vet Triage. And so now my current interests are trying to promote pet care and put more of the power back in the hands of pet owners, especially during these trying times.
That's an awesome background. Congrats on Cornell Vet, first of all. I've heard great things about it. And so, what exactly is Vet Triage? I mean, we're here today to talk about that company. So, what is it and how does it work?
Vet Triage is a 24/7 full-on video telehealth company for your animals. We're a global company. We've now helped take care of somewhere towards 27, 28 different animals all across the world. I only have veterinarians on my staff. They're all United States trained and licensed. And the goal here is basically twofold. One is to, as I mentioned, increase access to veterinary care for pet parents around the world, whatever the reason may be that you need a telehealth service, whether it's you're in a remote area, or you're quarantined, or your dog is aggressive, or you don't have a lot of money, or whatever it may be. But the second part of it is to improve the veterinary culture. We've seen a steady decline over the past at least 2 decades in the veterinary field, where young veterinarians coming out of school don't want to be vets, and we are graduating the highest number of veterinarians in history of veterinary medicine, and yet we can't find them to hire them. Now, I don't have a problem with that. I'm sitting on over 170 resumes, but that's because veterinarians don't want to work in the brick and mortar facility anymore. And so our goal is twofold: successful company to try and promote access to veterinary care, basically bring vet med to the 21st century, and then improve the culture of veterinary medicine.
Yeah, no, that's super interesting. And I feel like I've mentioned this in my podcast, but for, listeners who maybe don't know this, kind of a rule of thumb that everyone talks about is that the vet industry is about 10 years behind the human health industry. We have a lot of catching up to do. And so when you were looking at that, and at least like before Vet Triage, you were looking around at what was available in the vet industry, what issues led you to say, you know what, Vet Triage needs to happen?
I noticed that the front desk staff of any veterinary hospital, whether you're talking about a general practice of one doctor, or you're talking about a multi-specialty 24/7 ER with over 180 employees, that the front desk is inundated with phone calls day and night. They field hundreds of calls every day for pet parents who have the question of, do I have to come in? Should I be worried? And our answer forever was, if you're concerned, come in. It's kind of the safe blanket answer to have. The receptionists aren't medically trained. They can't give veterinary advice. And the veterinary technicians, who are equivalent of nurses, and our doctors are too busy taking care of patients, so they can't get on the phone. And I thought, why don't we take that and make that a business model? Let's get those pet parents who are calling in constantly looking for guidance, and stray them, this is even before the internet was really a thing, and before Google existed. But now get them away from Google, Dr. Google, and get them towards a veterinarian via telemedicine. And so the idea was planted years ago, and then I began working out the legalities of it and creating our own video platform for vet triage. So we don't use Skype or Zoom or whatever. We use our own video platform, and decided to operate it as if I was running an online veterinary hospital. And so it turns out we were the first ones on the scene. Then the pandemic hit. We launched just before the pandemic. And since the pandemic, we've seen now a rise of other veterinary telehealth companies, but my unbiased opinion, we're still the best ones. We're the only ones operating the way we're operating. So the problem that we had prior to vet triage existing was giving pet parents peace of mind, giving them a support, an access to educated individuals who can lead them in the right direction. And so that's what catapulted the idea into what we're doing now. You're absolutely right. We tend to be behind the human side of things, and there's political and social reasons for that. And but we are moving in that direction now. A lot of the states that previously didn't recognize telemedicine are now opening up to it. So that's what the human side did. And now I think 49 states on the human side accepts telemedicine and allows you to do certain things like prescriptions and what have you. And we are slowly getting there. Every few months, there's more states that jump on the wagon.
Yeah, that's amazing. And I'm glad that we're really having this conversation in the midst of this global pandemic. Whereas maybe if we sat down to talk even in the beginning of 2020, we'd be having a different conversation where people would say, yeah, telemedicine is not relevant at all. That's just not a thing I would consider. And this is a very big discussion to have. I think I've had even a couple of other guests who have sat down here talk about the future of technology and telemedicine in the vet industry. And so obviously we can't just talk about it in short 15 minutes. It's a big, big discussion. But to kind of distill it down, what would you like listeners to know about telehealth?
I want them to know that it is when done appropriately, with the correct level of standards, medical standards, it is a fantastic way to figure out whether or not your pet is experiencing an emergency that warrants an emergency visit and all the frustrations that may go along with that, or whether we can find some way to band-aid the problem until your veterinary clinic is open and can fit you in for an appointment. And we're available 24/7 for that. So you shouldn't feel alone when you have an animal problem, regardless of what day, time it is, holiday, what continent you're on. You can access veterinary care immediately, and you don't have to do your own research and go to Dr. Google or some social media page or whatever to find information from folks who we don't know what their credibility is. Whereas a company like mine, you've got 24/7 access to compassionate, intelligent, certified veterinarians, doctors of veterinary medicine.
We interrupt this episode to remind you of Shameless Pets, an all-natural, nutritionist-crafted, sustainable dog treat brand using surplus ingredients such as sweet potatoes that are too big or too small to have made it to the grocery store. They're made in the USA, and their mission is to save as much food as possible by incorporating healthy foods into innovative and fun treats. You can use Mella25 at checkout for a 25% discount. So with that, let's continue with this episode. Yeah, that's great. I really hope that pet parents start to steer away from Google. Dr. Google obviously does not have a degree, so hopefully they'll go over to vet triage. And so kind of along these lines of pet parents moving over to telemedicine, what does the future have in store for vet triage? What are your goals and where do you see yourself in a few years?
So as of right now, the primary way that we can really expand access to veterinary care is through partnerships with veterinary hospitals and rescue organizations. If you're a practice owner, if you own a general practice, regardless of how big or small it is, or you own a specialty hospital, an emergency clinic, or you're running a rescue organization, we can help. It allows pet parents to not have to search for help. It skips that strenuous step of trying to find something like us out there. It gets you right to the source. You trust your veterinary clinic, and so you would go on their website. You would see a vet triage link as an option for telemedicine. You would jump on there and go. And that's right now what we're trying to promote. And we have hospitals contact us weekly looking for partnership because word is getting out now that we operate in this fashion and they trust our work. For the long term, for let's say the next 5 years, 10 years, we're going to probably end up transitioning over to what I call a hybrid model, where veterinary clinics are utilizing telemedicine, not the way they're using it now, where doctors in the brick and mortar can perform their own telemedicine, because that's kind of the same thing. You're doing the same thing you would do, but just not in person. But I'm talking about, you have a separate company like mine who can take the workload off of the veterinary clinic, that workload that does not need to be physically there, taking up space or an appointment for a pet who really needs in-person care, who's really in trouble, who needs surgery, who needs vaccines, x-rays, blood work. That should be seen in person. The kind of the run-of-the-mill common, not so serious issues can be seen through a telemedicine service. And so I view that as being a hybrid model, where you have a telemedicine company, let's say, who would say, okay, Fluffy has an infection. We're partnered up with Animal Health Center in whatever, upstate New York. Go over there, they're going to have medication ready for you. And the person shows up, they purchase the medication, their pet gets taken care of, and they can follow up, let's say, in a week or two to see how things are going in person at the vet. And that's a nice hybrid model. And that way, veterinarians who are on the ground in the field doing life-saving work can focus on that, and we can take care of those less concerning medical ailments. And so that's what I think it's going to go over the next 5 years. I think we're going to see that. That's a huge undertaking, though, because you're talking about changing the minds of people who don't want to change things, just like any other profession or government, or it's tough to change things and to make them see the benefits of it, because you can also see how it can go wrong, right? You can see if you have somebody who's running a company who doesn't have the pet interest in mind, they can be pretty grimy, and this can turn into trouble. So I see the concerns, and so it's a balance. Easier for me to say, oh, easy, go ahead and do this. This is where we're going to be. But that's because I know my company, I know the quality that we have. It's just like any other service or product. There's going to be good stuff and bad stuff, and so we got to figure out how to tread that.
That is really impressive. I really think that you are on the front line of this movement. And so the future looks very bright for both you, for Vet Triage, for the vet industry in general, really. And so that is a great transition to our Mella signature question. I think some of these listeners are really getting tired of this question because every guest has answered this. But what does pet health and wellness mean to you in today's day and age?
What it means to me in this day and age, I think we are starting to see a shift towards putting more power in the hands of pet owners, right? Because the second the internet came out and you had resources like a web browser, and of course Google being the most popular one, and then YouTube being a huge one, people started looking for answers regarding many things, and pet health is one of them. And I think that what we're going to see here is putting more and more power and in the hands of pet owners. So, for example, with Mella, for example, you're giving pet parents potentially a way to monitor vitals, right? Temperature. That's a huge deal. Is my pet hypothermic? Are we febrile? Right? What is normal range? Okay. Can I track this? I'll have a baseline, and then what can I see from here? Right? There are other companies that we work with, Cluj, for example. They allow pet parents to submit fecal samples. Well, if you want to know if your pet has a parasite, a fecal parasite, and you have a vet appointment coming up, submit the sample, get the results, go to the vet. You've skipped a step. You've done it on your own, And so we're seeing more and more companies like this that are very forward thinking, that are putting more and more emphasis on the pet parent being able to take care, investigate further. Now, that doesn't mean that they're going to be doctors, obviously, but we're seeing this shift. Plus, the generations, millennials grew up with this type of technology. Gen Z, they're all been there, right? I was born in 1980. I was right at the cusp of this. And so I'm not as ingrained with social media and online stuff as people who are younger than me. But boy, the ones who are the Gen Zs are growing up in this. And so they're going to be, we already see it, more self-sufficient. So all that to say that I think that what pet health means to me now is putting more and more emphasis on the pet owner to not just do their own research, but to actually connect with reliable companies who have excellent services and products, to make them as quick as possible to figure out what to do with their pet during normal prophylactic times and during medical problems. And that will help hopefully streamline the veterinarian's process when you go into a clinic.
Yeah, that's a great answer, and I hope that parents do that. And so, this is a very short podcast episode. Unfortunately, in 10 or so minutes, we can't discuss as much as we'd like to. And so, for those listening, how can they keep up to date with what you and Vet Triage is going to do?
So the website is vettriage.com. That's BETTRIAGE.com. And that's where you purchase your session, and the video opens up right then and there. There's no app. We didn't want people downloading something in a crisis. So you can just go to vettriage.com, purchase the session, and be on with the veterinarian in minutes. In regards to following me and my company, I have a Instagram, Dr. Shadi Ireifej. I have a YouTube channel under my name as well, where we have lots of educational videos. Vet Triage has an Instagram as well as a YouTube channel. Please follow, subscribe, do all the things, and that's where you can reach out, message us, and follow and do all the things. Whatever you got to do, we're here.
Well, that's great. Then I hope everyone goes over and takes a look at what you guys are doing. Well, thank you so much for joining me today. It's been an amazing chat.
Thank you very much. Great work to you. Thank you.
Thank you all for listening, and hope you enjoyed this special episode. If you're interested in keeping up to date with what we're doing here at Mella, feel free to sign up for our newsletter at mella.ai/newsletter for an exclusive look into our company. Thank you.